Gentlemen, please take your seats. The spotlight is about to begin. Good evening, everybody. You're listening to the Mystery Matt Spotlight podcast. This evening we are doing our second part, Kinda Not Really. In this one we are going to be covering the assassination of JFK, which is the continuation, kind of, sort of our last week's Marilyn Monroe's. Which, before that, we determined that Marilyn Monroe did not die at the age of 27, which was the one before that one. There you go. That's how you promote all in one go.
Yeah, pretty much.
Anyways, I am joined once again by Sarah and Nancy. We've switched places now. Sarah's going to be the narrator, and we're going to say funny things at her and make faces to her. So
I just won't look at you.
That's all right. You hardly look at me all day anyway.
I know.
It's better for the stomach that way.
No shit. Wait, lots of shit. All right, are we good?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so John F. Kennedy is known as John Fitzgerald Kennedy. He was the first president born in the 20th century, and he was the youngest elected president at the age of 43. He was assassinated on November 22nd, 1963, at the age of 46. So the assassination took place in Dallas, Texas, on Elm Street in the Dealey Plaza. So he was driving in a motorcade. So JFK and Jacqueline Kennedy were sitting in the back. JFK was on your right. Jacqueline was on your left. And they were in an elevated seat. And in front of them was Texas Governor John Connally, who was sitting right in front of Kennedy. And his wife Nellie was in front of Jacqueline Kennedy on the left side. And the car behind them was the Secret Service that flanked at the front and just slightly to the right of the car, and also to the left of the back of the car were motorcade, like a motorcyclecade. Clinton Hill was on Mrs. Kennedy's Secret Service as her assigned agent, and he spent actually a lot of time with her throughout that first term. And for the most of the drive, he stood on the running boards of the president's limo, which was a convertible, in case people aren't sure why this happened. But he relaxed near the end of the trip and got onto the car behind them and stood on their running boards. As they rounded Dealey Plaza on Elm Street, the car had to kind of slow down because it's like a curve. And that's when the first shot rang out and then another. The second shot allegedly hit Kennedy in the back of the neck, right underneath the collar of his shirt, and came out his throat. And then Governor Connally had turned and was also shot. A third shot rang out, which hit the president in the head. So Mrs. Kennedy is seen in the film at this point climbing onto the back of the limo. Most people presume that she was trying to escape, but she wasn't. She was actually grabbing bits of her husband's head to put it back. You should see Nancy's face right now.
Yeah, she was in such shock that she was actually trying to put Humpty Dumpty back together again.
So can you explain what they were doing? Like, I know they were in a car, but was it for a parade? Was it?
It was part of the start of the re-election for her second term.
Okay.
So they were starting the campaign trail basically for the next election. So when that happened, her trauma response was, "Oh, I got to fix him." You know, I don't think anybody could understand what was going through her mind at that time, as her husband's head basically just exploded right next to her.
That poor woman.
Yeah, that had to follow her till her death, right? So Agent Clinton Hill runs and jumps onto the limo at the back of the trunk, and that's when he saw Mrs. Kennedy grabbing pieces of her husband's skull. So he gets her back into the seat. President Kennedy falls over to the left, and his head is in her lap. And Agent Hill recalls vividly looking down and seeing nothing but a massive hole, and the president unresponsive with his eyes open. He looks up and gives a thumbs down to the car behind him, indicating that the president was dead. And they sped off, got onto the freeway, and took the president to a hospital because he actually did still have a pulse. 20 minutes later at 1 p.m., the president was pronounced dead. So that's all that's true. That's all that happened, but there's so much more. Lee Harvey Oswald, he was last He was seen less than 2 minutes later on the second floor of the Texas School Book Depository. He retrieves a Coke and he's let go through the building because he was an employee. They didn't see him as a threat. So he walks home, grabs a handgun, and leaves. He is stopped by police officer J.D. Tippett, and he shoots the officer dead. He's then located in a movie theater about 80 minutes after the president was assassinated, and he was arrested. So the law enforcement searched the book depository and found on the 6th floor by the windows overlooking Elm Street an Italian bolt-action military rifle, a Carcano rifle. Oswald had been part of the U.S. military before defecting to Russia years earlier. He married a young Russian woman named Marina, and the two returned to the United States with their 6-month-old daughter in 1962. He was known as a proud Marxist and a Castro sympathizer, a communist, basically, and he was being watched and tracked by the FBI. Oswald quickly became the #1 suspect in JFK's assassination, but he was actually never officially charged with the killing of the president. 2 days later, on November 24th, Oswald was executed by strip club and nightclub owner Jack Ruby while in the parking garage of the police station as he was being transferred to county lockup, where they thought he would be safer. Yeah, misoversight. But we'll get to Jack Ruby later, and because there's a lot of conspiracy theories surrounding him as well that's connected. So the two shooters, to me, is not really a conspiracy theory. The physics kind of speak to this. Whether you believe in science or not, it's what it is, right? So I've heard that there was at least 4 bullets shot. There was one that missed, possibly one that missed, but I don't think that is true. The first bullet, like I said, went through the back of Kennedy's head, or through his neck and throughout his throat. And this is where it gets tricky, because the Warren Commission has this theory called the magic bullet theory. And it states the following. When the bullet exited Kennedy, it entered Connolly's back near his right armpit, shattered his 5th rib, exited out from under his right nipple, shattered his right wrist, and ended up in his left thigh. This couldn't have been the same bullet. It could not have been. One.
That doesn't even line up with a body.
No, because I was even trying to sit there last night at work. I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, I watched the Zapruder film for the 90th time again, because, I can't see that enough. And I was trying to figure out if he turned to the left, because I'm thinking if you're in the left side of the car, the passenger side, and something happens in the backseat, you automatically turn to the left. But he actually did turn to the right. For it to come from the book depository, or even from JFK, he would have had to been right fuck around. It didn't. It had come from the right, front of the right, hit him here as he was turning, and that's why it came out here in his hand. So I'm still not sure how it got into his left thigh, because the trajectory just wouldn't have.
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense.
No matter how you slice it or try and twist the human body, that doesn't line out.
Right. So, one, the bullet would not have made it through Kennedy and all through Connolly to end up in his left thigh. The bullet would have lost speed after hitting Connolly's rib, and even more so, would have lost more speed, I should say, after hitting his wrist. It would have likely have just stayed in his wrist or maybe landed in the seat. Very, Number 2, the bullet was found that the Warren Commission said was this magic bullet was pretty much intact, and the bullet fragments from Connolly's wounds would have seen a less intact bullet. However, what the hell did I write here? It could be consistent with the through and through of Kennedy's neck and throat. The first shot, like I said, did not miss Kennedy. It was that through and through his neck. The second shot hit Governor Connolly. The third shot hit Kennedy in the head. And Connolly said 3 shots rang out. 1, Kennedy, 2, him, and 3rd, Kennedy again, and his story never changed. But some say that there was the 4th shot. So the first one came from the right-hand side to the front of his head, not from behind, because if you've watched the Zapruder film, he goes back. And then they think that a 4th bullet came from the book depository, hit him in the back of the head, and pushed him forward again. And that's when he tipped over onto her lap. So whether or not there was that 4th shot, I'm not sure. I think that when you get shot with the impact, you're going to lean back. And because you're in a car with the back a certain height, you're going to bounce forward.
Yeah,
Anyways.
you're gonna have some bounce going on.
So
Bullets don't move slow from my last calculation.
no, but they do slow down the further they get. And
Yeah,
more
but the type
impact
of
they have.
rifle it is, you're not going up with a handgun and trying to hit a guy from half a mile away. You're using some high-end shit.
But still,
the seats in the cars though were a lot more cushiony and bouncy.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're going to bounce either way. Yeah.
So why would I say this? Physics.
Physics, Bezel.
When the bullet hit Kennedy in the head, it sent blood, brain matter, and bone fragments all across the back and to the left of the limo. Whoops, that way. Nobody can see me. Why am I pointing?
Don't point, it doesn't matter.
A shot from behind wouldn't have done that. The motorcyclists who were on the right-hand side, one of them was a little further back, closer to the car with the Secret Service, and one of them was a little bit more adjacent to the left rear side. He got covered in
Squishy bits?
blood and brain matter. Agent Hill recalled seeing it go flying back behind Kennedy. It was a much closer range in a high-power rifle. The possible fourth shot that struck Kennedy from behind sent less forward because it was further away and in a more downward trajectory. The fourth bullet is another conspiracy theory. Surprise. If there was no fourth bullet, then how did blood spatter get to the front of the car? Well, because when the bullet hit the front of his head, high-velocity spatter went forward in a more spray pattern in smaller sizes, and what went behind was larger, went further, and would be considered as medium velocity. The bullet hit the front first. As it traveled through, it slowed a bit, and blood was blocked by bone and brain matter, basically exploding it.
And like I mentioned to you the other night, sometimes it's not necessarily the bullet that kills you, it's the shock wave that's behind it.
Yes. And that would blow out the brain matter and the
that
bone.
would push everything everywhere, right?
So it's hard to explain, basically, but you get the gist, right? Of the the velocity blood spatter. So you got 3 shots, 2 shooters, basically.
Boom.
Yeah. So just moments after Kennedy was pronounced dead, his vice president, Lyndon B. Johnson, was sworn in as president on Air Force One before returning to D.C., with Mrs. Kennedy by his side, still covered in her husband's blood, and his body loaded into the plane. They did not do an autopsy in Texas, which is actually against the law. He was taken to Bethesda, Maryland Naval Hospital, where that's where they performed the autopsy, and they didn't do a very good job. Days later, Johnson established a committee to investigate Kennedy's assassination to determine if there was one shooter or multiple, and if this was a conspiracy to take out President Kennedy. Johnson appointed Chief Justice of the United States Earl Warren to head the Warren Commission.
Wait.
What?
They were doing an investigation to see if somebody was trying to assassinate him?
If there was a plot, a conspiracy, whether it was like a domestic or international.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't make that clear. I was tired this morning and I was writing this
I was going to
as fast as
say,
I could.
I'm pretty sure someone planned to do it because they fucking did it.
Yeah, they gone done and did it. So Earl Warren, he headed the Warren Commission with Richard Russell Jr., John Sherman Cooper, Gerald Ford, Alan Dulles, and John McCloy. For 10 months, they allegedly did their job. Problems with this are they did not interview all of the witnesses or all of the Secret Service who were present that day. They ignored key evidence. Yet, September 1964, they released their conclusion in 26 volumes of 888 pages that one shooter, Lee Harvey Oswald, was responsible and that there was no conspiracy to have President Kennedy assassinated domestically or internationally. More issues with this is that half of the commission had issues with Kennedy. Alan Dulles was head of the CIA until Kennedy removed him, holding him partially responsible and at fault for the Bay of Pigs disaster. Senator Richard Russell was a segregationist, and multiple civilian witnesses also said that the shots had come from behind them, up the grassy knoll where the fence separated the rail yard and Dealey Plaza. Journalist Cheryl McKinnon said the following, quote, "The only thing that I am absolutely sure of today is that at least 2 of the shots fired that day at Dealey Plaza came from behind where I stood on the knoll, not from the book depository. Puffs of white smoke still hung in the air in small patches," unquote. Her account and the account of Bill Newman, who stood 10 feet away from the cars, put the person who shot the fatal shot at the top of the knoll about 95 feet away. The the book depository is about 85 feet away, but once you add up the trajectory of the 6th floor, you're adding more feet to it. So you're looking at 100 or possibly more feet. So you have to add that up. Mary Mormon, who stood on the left of the motorcade, facing the fence at the top of the grassy knoll, happened to take a photo as the shot happened, capturing a dark shadow over the fence on the other side of the rail yard. But people ran in the direction of the fence looking for the gunman, and all of this was ignored. As was the fact that this took place in 6 seconds. The first shot was in about 2.75 seconds, then another one 4.81 seconds, and then 3/4 of a second. The gun found at the book depository that belonged to Oswald could not load that fast. The lead particles in Kennedy's head did not match the type of ammo that Oswald used in that gun. All was ignored.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jack Ruby shot and killed Lee Harvey Oswald 2 days later on November 24th, 1963. But who was Ruby? He was a strip and nightclub owner who allegedly had ties to the mafia. He knew all of the police, which was why it was easy for him to get so close to Oswald. They didn't see him as a threat, and he could just walk right up to them. He first said he did it to spare Mrs. Kennedy the agony of testifying and going through a trial, and then later he said that he had an epileptic seizure and the gun just went off and he didn't understand why or what he just did. So my theory, this is my theory and my theory alone, and I think it makes a lot of sense. So
You would. It's your theory and your theory alone.
well, then let me know what you think.
Okay.
Okay, so my theory was that he and Oswald were hired either by the CIA or the mafia to do this. Oswald got pinched first because he's sloppy and idiotic. So in order to keep Oswald quiet and take all of the heat, the only way to do that was to kill him. Better to go down for killing the man who killed the beloved president than the president himself. Am I right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Because basically, you kill the man who killed the president, you look good.
Yeah, you're a hero.
You are kind of a hero. You still get charged with murder, but it's better than
Being the other guy.
Yeah. So, do you agree? It's a possibility?
It's a possibility.
It's not out there.
Yeah.
So, and the second is Matt's favorite.
My favorite.
Mind control.
Mind Control, brought to you by MK Ultra. Get your fix today.
Let's not say we did. So,
What?
during the Cold War, the CIA was
I
convinced
like
that...
your eyebrows tonight. They look amazing.
Thank you. My emotional support eyebrows.
Emotional support eyebrows. Okay. All right.
They
Can I-
give me emotional support.
Emotional support, because you need it.
See, I've always wanted to see an eye midget.
What?
Isn't that why we have a
A
kid?
CNI midget. You know, like a...
But they can't see over tall buildings or cars or anything.
So do you mean like a seeing eye dog?
But a small
Yeah.
human, tiny human.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Would you dress them up like Oompa Loompas?
No.
I would.
I might dress him up as like Yoda for Halloween or something.
But midgets kind of freak me out, so.
Anywho.
Anyways.
Anyways, I says to Mabel, I says.
Oh, you know what we learned today? That ketchup was once made from sharks' buttholes.
That was I said? Shark's buttholes?
Yeah.
That was buttholes.
Back the very first experiment with ketchup was made
It's like boiled
through
buttholes.
shark buttholes.
Yeah.
And then through, what was it? Something mushroom? Something?
Yeah, then
Then love apples.
then boiled mushroom and salt water.
Yeah, and then he called tomatoes love apples.
Love apples. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Anyways,
Wow.
that's a whole different conversation. We should have that one day. The conversation about the evolution of ketchup. That was an interesting speech. Anyways, so during the Cold War, the CIA was convinced that the Soviets
Gotta cut all that shit out.
discovered a drug that allowed them to control the human mind. So they started a program referred to as MK Ultra. Director of this new CIA experiment, Sidney Gottlieb. Anyways, I
I'm
can't.
not the only one that struggled with word names tonight.
Fuck. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, I might be on this myself. Anyways, he tried LSD as a way to alter the minds of some people. He'd spread it around through using hospitals and clinics and institutions as an experiment to find out basically what people's reactions were and whether or not it could be used to control minds.
Is that kind of like when we used to blow pot in the dog's ear to see if it got him high?
Yeah, I guess so, but you shouldn't do that.
By the way, it works.
Oh, well, you shouldn't do that. Anyways, allegedly, Jack Ruby was one of the CIA's guinea pigs, and some believe Oswald was too, but I actually couldn't find his name anywhere. I found Jack Ruby's actually when I was looking for Oswald. Excuse me. You can cut my burp out. Dr. Jolly West was Ruby's psychiatrist. West actually inserted himself into Ruby's case after his conviction. Ruby still had to testify at the Warren Commission hearing. In April 1964, West goes to see Ruby to examine him and says in 48 hours, Jack Ruby had a psychotic break and that he was having audio and visual hallucinations and could not return to sanity. So Alan Dulles, as you know, was part of the Warren Commission, was the former head of the CIA, too many letters, by the way, because Kennedy removed him. Dulles was second in command to Earl Warren on the commission. Allegedly, there was or is a theory that the CIA was involved in JFK's assassination because the CIA had operation to overthrow Fidel Castro, which was the communist Cuban leader. And JFK basically stopped that. Richard Helms, who oversaw the MK Ultra program, was Dr. Jolly West's employer and a liaison between the CIA and the Warren Commission. And the Warren Commission was out to prove that Oswald acted alone. So, the CIA may have programmed Oswald to take out Kennedy and then Ruby to prevent Oswald from talking. That's one theory. In 1978, Frank Church Commission exposed the MK Ultra trials and that Dulles and Helms, as well as a shit ton of others, lied about the CIA involvement with Oswald and their own agents. And in the end, they concluded that there was indeed a conspiracy. So, yeah.
Neat.
Do you have anything to add to the MK?
No.
Okay.
I know of it. I didn't jump down the bunny hole. If I find out more about it, maybe we'll do an entire podcast on MK Ultra.
It was so confusing for me because I'm not into that kind of stuff.
I just wanted you to dip the toe in just
Did
to
I
say,
dip it enough?
Yeah, we're
just
good.
The tip?
Yeah,
see if I like
just the tip, just to see if you like it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there's some other conspiracy theories going around. There's the Jesuit theory, which I didn't actually have time to dive into.
Theory?
The Jesuit theory. They mention it, but they didn't actually even give details about it. So
Oh.
I'm not going looking. I don't have time to go look for this theory. So if you want, go out there and look at the Jesuit theory and see what they had. They were involved in the Kennedy assassination. Army General Edwin Walker disliked Kennedy and feared that Kennedy would end the Cold War or something like that. Influential retailers.
Oops, I made peace. Uh-oh. Like what?
Because war makes some money.
I know that, but...
Influential retailer Stanley Marcus actually warned the White House that Dulles wasn't safe for the president, or that Dallas wasn't safe for the president. Apparently, neither was Alan Dulles. It was odd that there was no active protesting going on, despite the fact that there was a lot of anti-Kennedy issues going on with the local oilmen, like the men who, the people who struck oil and become rich Texans and shit.
Yeah.
They were really pissed at him. And so was Edwin Walker, right? The Secret Service's involvement, they knew about these threats because it has not just by Stanley Marcus telling them, hey, don't come here because there's a lot of threats against them, but other threats too. But they cleaned the limo right away while he was in the hospital. So there was no processing the scene because basically the limo was the crime scene. One of the crime scenes. They cleaned it all up and basically had it done before the police could even get to it. They had his body removed before Dallas had the autopsy done, which I had mentioned earlier, that being actually illegal. And they knew of the threat and the open limo. If you knew of the threat, why would you let him ride in an open limo?
Put him in a bulletproof one, right?
Yeah. Or cancel it, but they didn't. So was there an involvement from the Secret Service? I'm not saying that the agents that were there that day may not have been privy to it.
Well, you don't if you're doing that.
But there could have
been
other
people
agents.
that know, the better, right?
Yeah, exactly. Jacqueline Kennedy said after Oswald's arrest that the assassin didn't fit the crime and that her husband wasn't afforded the satisfaction of being killed for civil rights, but a silly little communist. Issues with Walker and the military. They were worried that Kennedy would de-escalate the Cold War and pull out troops out of Vietnam. The oilmen were angry at Kennedy for wanting to eliminate their tax breaks, because the rich gets richer. The mafia to derail Kennedy's Department of Justice. I guess he had some plans for that. And the CIA for fear that JFK might end their covert plot to kill Castro.
Oh.
Yeah. So I think I definitely think that the assassination was a deeper plot for sure. There was three shots, and they all hit. 2 of them hit Kennedy, 1 of them hit Governor Connolly. And I think obviously that there's no way that there wasn't more than one there was more than 2 shooters, or less than 2 shooters. So yeah. What about you guys?
I don't know. I have seen the footage. If you get a decent enough copy, you'll really wish you hadn't seen the footage because it's icky.
I've seen it so many times in the last 3-4 days.
Yeah, you also slowed it down and zoomed in.
No, I didn't. They did it.
Oh, they did it.
It's also been cleaned up now, and it's clearer and cleaner because it was an 8mm film, right?
See, I don't trust anything that's been too altered. Because you can mess with things.
It wasn't that cleaned up. It was just made a bit more clear. But there's, if you want books and stuff, 6 Seconds. I can't remember who wrote it. Just look up 6 Seconds. About the Kennedy assassination. That was a pretty good book. And this guy actually pretty much followed the Kennedy issue right from the beginning and had already determined that there was a conspiracy.
Well, he started off the space race thing, right?
I guess. I didn't look into that.
I'm pretty sure that was him. What do you got, Nancy?
So while I was doing the Monroe research, there was part of the article, the Vanity Fair article, that talked about how the mafia was trying to take the Kennedys down and that they were doing surveillance. So what I find interesting is that, when was his death date again?
November 22nd, 1963.
And when did they say was Marilyn's?
August 5th, I think, 1962.
So a year and a bit later.
Yeah.
Because they, I know the FBI and the CIA were not impressed with the Kennedys for leaking all the secrets to Monroe. And there had already been surveillance and everything started.
I agree. I think they were definitely watching both sides at that time before Marilyn died. And it would give the CIA the biggest motive to take out Kennedy. And probably even had a hand a couple months later taking out Bobby Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember when he died, but hang on.
Oh, you're looking it up.
Bobby Kennedy Jr. Oh, that's not the right one. I don't think I want Junior, do I? Okay, he was assassinated, June 6th, 1968. So, it was a little bit down the line, but he was still also assassinated. And I find that's...
So, 5-year span.
And it's weird, because why would you assassinate 2 Kennedys? And it was the reason that I think they assassinated Bobby Kennedy later, because he was running for president. And they could not have another loose cannon Kennedy in the White House, right? The CIA, I mean. So... that's another exploring. Just the Kennedys alone, just going down the rabbit hole of JFK's death and then going into Bobby Kennedy's death, we could probably tie it in easily to a conspiracy itself, because I find it just really strange that both of these guys were gunned down.
So typically when somebody's assassinated, it's because they have too much information. Mm-hmm. And they hold too much power with that information.
With power comes great responsibility. Yes. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And that would give motive to take out Marilyn Monroe as well, because she now knew all this information.
Yep.
And was prepared to use it.
Yes.
And who's to say that with Kennedy out of the picture, John F. Kennedy out of the picture, that maybe that information dies with him as well. So it's a twofer.
Yes. Do you still have your Ouija board?
No, I got rid of it. You told me to.
Okay, good. But I was like, we should contact Marilyn Monroe and John F. Kennedy.
They would talk to some Canadians from the future.
Yeah. Can we borrow you for 5 minutes, please?
So, how old was Kennedy?
46 when he died.
46. So he was what, almost 10 years exactly older than Monroe.
She was 36.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's about 9 years older.
9 years older?
Yeah, because he would have been 45 when she died.
She was born in 26.
Yeah, but didn't you say they only died months apart?
No, a year and a couple months.
Oh.
He was born in 1917.
17.
And she was born in 1926.
So 9 years.
So 9 years, yeah. 9 years apart. That's still, like, I don't know, that's weird. The whole thing's weird.
It is. It's weird. And, like, watching the film, I've seen the film before, right? But I never really I only had to focus on, it's like, oh shit, yeah, there goes his head backwards. I didn't actually see it. The documentary that I watched had it slowed right down, and they were doing frame by frame. And I'm like, oh my God. And then of course I had to write information down, so I had to go back. So I've watched that over and over. No wonder I couldn't sleep this week. Like, watching a man's head get blown off.
The thing that floored me the most is when apparently Jackie was trying to put his head back together.
You didn't know that
and
until
it's
I told
just
you.
like, really?
Yeah.
Like, you can't even think of that state of mind that you're just so in shock
Oh
and
shit, let me grab his
fucked up
head.
that happened. It's like, oh, honey, you dropped your frontal cortex. Like, I went like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, holy.
There's even theories that Lyndon B. Johnson was also behind it.
Yeah.
Because I guess there was I don't know, there was a scandal. I didn't go full into that. But apparently there was a fear of a scandal where he would have been taken off the ballot as his running mate as vice president.
Wowie.
And it is kind of weird that he was adamant to be sworn in right then and there.
Yeah.
Like, what, 80 minutes? Less than 2 hours after the president was dead?
Yeah, they do it immediately because they still need a commander-in-chief.
They do, but he would have automatically fell into that position anyway, so it could have weaned.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, like, he didn't even
Like
wait to get into Washington. He did it in Dallas in the plane. Like,
Yeah, like he could have been
it could have waned, so they
just
got back to the White
acting
House.
president. It didn't need to be sworn in right there.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we're going to need your blood sample.
All right, I'm ready to go. Let's go now.
Yeah.
You know, like.
Can you guys make me president?
But he even wasn't happy with the commission report, the Warren Commission report. And I think Richard Russell said he wouldn't even sign off on it at first. So he wasn't high on the conclusion that they had drawn. So that speaks volumes as well.
Yeah.
I would love to dive deep into that. Maybe not for a podcast, but just to get my hands on it. But even since, like, a lot of files have been declassified about the JFK assassination, but there's still thousands of files that have not been declassified.
If I'm not mistaken, there might be a Mandela effect about the assassination too, I think.
Oh, I don't know.
People remember it happening a different way back before.
It could also be a different perspective depending where you're standing or which angle you're seeing it.
Well, yeah, but it was supposed to be like of that same video. You know, the one that's stereotypically like in
The Zapruder film, they call it.
the what?
The Zapruder film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was taken by a man named something Zapruder,
Hmm.
who was also a Russian immigrant.
Yeah.
Interesting
Interesting.
there, Harry Potter.
That makes you go,
Yeah. That's way better than things that make you go, ouch.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure, but I also read that Jack Ruby was a Jewish businessman. Like, he was Jewish. So he wouldn't... That kind of throws a wrench into my Oswald Ruby did it theory, because would they really work together?
Yeah, I don't know.
But I also don't think that, even though Oswald was a Castro sympathizer, I can't say that. I was going to say synthesizer. I don't think he really had motive to do this, and I also don't think that he would, at least not on his own. I don't think he would have come up with this plan to take out the president on his own. I don't think he was intelligent enough. And if he was intelligent enough, he wouldn't have gotten caught that fucking easily. He wouldn't have left the gun behind. He would have stashed it better. You know, he would have been out of there. He wouldn't have gone back home and grabbed another gun and went walking down the street. He would have fucking stayed home. So I don't think either he wasn't the one there in the book depository where he was, and he's just an idiot.
See,
So-
like, that's why I don't understand why they did the thing in the first place. The parade, like, thing. You don't parade, well, I would imagine nowadays you don't at all parade around any super important person.
They don't anymore.
No, that's what I mean.
If they do, it's inside an actual car with bulletproof glass.
Like the Pope Mobile?
Yeah, that's the Pope bubble.
The
Is that
Pope.
what it is? The Pope bubble? I'm looking at Nancy because you're the Catholic.
Yeah, Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. She's like, I don't know. I haven't
Fuck, I
ever
know.
seen him.
But yeah, I don't think they have done. I think they learned a lesson. As you know, only one president has been attempted to be assassinated since then.
If I wasn't mistaken, Kennedy was also sworn in on the alien stuff, and that might be part of the stuff that they hushed.
That he may have spoke to Marilyn Monroe about.
Could possibly.
I think Marilyn Monroe would have had enough dirt without that.
Do you think we have alien overlords?
No.
No? Would you be surprised if we did?
At this point? No. I don't think fucking anything could surprise me.
No. We're at 35 minutes.
Call it.
Yeah, you're good.
Time of death.
Time of death.
Time of death, 11:01.
There you go. Well, we made it through the two-parter. This one's a little bit shorter, but that means that you guys can just come back earlier next time to listen to it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sounds like they always want.
I didn't want to. I could have jammed more into this. I just didn't want to.
Yeah, and the best part about doing it like this is that if you don't really care to hear about the JFK assassination, but you might want to know a little bit about Marilyn Monroe, you get that option. You can just pick and choose, right?
I do think that there's definitely a connection, though. Like, there's definitely a connection between her death and his death. There's got to be. It doesn't. To me, it doesn't
happen
make
that quick.
sense.
Yeah.
You know.
And if it does happen like that quickly, like.
I don't believe in
So, for
coincidences.
example, if Marilyn dies, right, and they even a little bit suspect foul play because of, you know, her association with the president and the president's brother, is it? Yeah. I didn't know if it was a cousin or an uncle or.
Well, who knows?
But
We only know of the two.
if there was any wonder around her death, there's no way they would have done an open air motorcade like that. Because they would have been on higher security where you don't just stick your president out in the air. You know what I mean? I did that in public once, and good looks, guys.
Now she's lost her thought.
Was that ever done before? The open
I
parade type thing?
in the documentary that I watched, I think they said that this is kind of the first time.
And you had said the Kennedys were famous before they went into politics.
They were well known because his father was into politics. They never made it to the presidential level. Jack Kennedy, John Kennedy, that was his nickname, Jack. He was the first Kennedy to make it to
office.
And then Bobby Kennedy was running later when he was assassinated. And I think there's a Kennedy running now.
Can you imagine how much information the three of them must have had to be shot
That is
and
one
killed?
fucked up throuple.
In the span of 5 years?
Yeah.
So you can't tell me that they're not connected.
Oh, I'm not telling you that they're not. I fully
there's
believe
no
there
way-
is something there.
There's no
And I'm
no
going
doubt.
to say it's either mafia or CIA.
Yeah.
I think those are our two options. Don't come for me. Please don't come for me. I'm a
LSD.
proud mom.
The helicopters can't see us. We're indoors because it's cold outside.
I can put sigils to protect us from demons, but not CIA.
Alrighty, we good? We're at 38 minutes. That's a little bit better. We padded it out a bit. Car just went by,
We
so F that
we
guy.
patted the bra a bit.
Alrighty. Well, we will see you next week with something completely different. Have a good night.